The Legend of Spookley, the Square Pumpkin, written by Joe Troiano, illustrated by Susan Bantha. Dear reader, one Halloween night when my son Nicholas was very young, he asked me to tell him a bedtime story. He didn't want it to be scary. He wanted it to be about pumpkins. The story I made up that night, Spookley, the Square Pumpkin, became the book you are about to listen to. That was many years ago. My son Nick is now grown, and Spookley's story has been read and listened to by many children since it was published. The most important copy, of course, is the one you are about to listen to. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed telling it to Nick that Halloween night a long, long time ago. Joe. And there on our title page, we see our title right here, our picture of Spookley, and our author's name, and then our illustrator's name that drew the pictures. One day in the pumpkin patch, the strangest little pumpkin hatched. Spookley wasn't like his friends. Where they had curves, he had ends. Spookley was different. He was odd. He was rare. Spookley the pumpkin wasn't round. He was square. While the round pumpkins had fun rolling along, poor Spookley sat there, shaped all wrong. He tried and tried with all his might, but he couldn't budge. He just sat tight. The other pumpkins teased him because he was a square. Spookley wished he was round and could roll everywhere. That is, until one night when they all discovered it's fine to be round when the weather is fair, but there are times it's better to be a square. Halloween was just a day away when a mighty storm blew across the bay. It tossed the round pumpkins to and fro. It snapped their vines, then off they go, bouncing left, slamming right, banging, bashing. What a sight! Spookley sat there filled with fright, but glad to be a square that night. Suddenly, the fence gave way. 3 pumpkins rolled out and into the bay. Spookley knew what must be done. It was up to him. He was the one. He teetered, he tottered, he tipped, he tried. He finally flipped. He was on his side. Again he tipped, again he flopped, again he flipped, and then he stopped. Look how he's blocking the fence so none of the other pumpkins can go through. He stopped right in the gap where the fence had snapped. He blocked the way. The hole was capped. All the pumpkins shouted, "Hooray!" Spookley the Square Pumpkin had saved the day. And then a pumpkin hit him with a whack. He thought his shell would start to crack. Then another hit him with a thump, and another with a smack. Then one by one, a ton of pumpkins piled on the stack, with a bang and a bash and a crash and a crunch and a crash, and then it all went black. Look at that poor little guy down at the bottom of all of those pumpkins. At dawn, when the storm had stopped, the farmer came out and checked his crop. He picked his pumpkins up one by one and laid them out in the warm, dry sun. And when the last was moved away, the farmer could see what had saved the day. An odd-shaped pumpkin, short and dense, was wedged against the broken fence. Its shell was bruised, its stem was too, but there was brave little Spookley, sitting strong and true. Right then and there, the farmer knew of all the seeds he'd ever sown, Spookley's were the most special that he had ever grown. And the next year, when it was time to sow, he sowed those seeds in every row. He watered and weeded and watched them grow. And, oh, That morning, about mid-June, when the pumpkin patch began to bloom, there were tiny pumpkins everywhere, hundreds and hundreds, most of them square. Look at all the different ones. Some were cubes, some were rectangle, some were flat, others were triangle. There was a bed of ripe red ones and 2 rows of blue. There was polka dot pumpkins and rainbow ones too. There were thousands of colors and hundreds of shape. Oh, what a garden variety makes. And now every year on Halloween, Spookley's patch is quite a scene. People come from far and near to see what wonders grow that year. They stop, they gawk, they gaze, they stare, and then they pick a pumpkin that's round, rectangular, or perfectly square. Now you know the story of how Spookley grew, and maybe someday you'll tell someone too, and they'll go tell someone who'll go tell another, and maybe one day we will all discover you can't judge a book or a pumpkin by its cover.